Have you been hearing about City of Nations? I have an amazing story to tell you. Now, this story is the beginning of how everything started at City of Nations for us. This is called The Assignment. My name is Victor Jeremiah Oba. I'm the lead at City of Nations, and I cannot wait to share this amazing story with you. Stay tuned. This amazing story begins on the 8th of November 2022. I was in my bedroom. I think God speaks to a lot of his servants in the bedroom. I'm not an exception, I guess. I was in the bedroom, and the first things that the word that I heard was, "Go and raise me a city of nations." That was all I heard. It didn't make sense to me because I've heard the word cities, I've heard nations. But when you combine both words to mean city of nations, I've not heard that before. And that was all I heard. I was still trying to make sense of what I had just heard. So I stepped out of the bedroom, I was inside the room, and I was using my towel on myself just to properly clean myself. And then I heard the remaining statements of the mandate. It says, "Go and raise me a city of nations," using the life of Christ as the standard for greatness. My mom was with me on the day when this mandate came. I literally spoke it out over and over again. I wrote it down somewhere because I had to really understand what God was saying to us at the time. And then he gave me two scriptures that backed the mandate. The first scripture is in the book of Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, which says that we're a city set upon a hill that cannot be hidden. So the second scripture he gave was in the book of Isaiah chapter 59, verse 19, which says that when the enemy come against us like a flood, the Lord God will raise up a standard against him. It was an amazing time. I realized that the standard that God was speaking about was the life of Christ. And the life of Christ was the standard that we're going to use to build this city of nations with God's help. It was indeed a call to serve. But then I realized and I understood and I also acknowledged the fact that Victor Oba cannot do City of Nations by himself. So it was important for us to create systems, structures, and people that would help build this assignment that God was going to be committing into our hand. I remember on that day, after I had written out the vision, I sent a message to my pastor and I told him that this is what God is saying and this is what I just heard at the time. And he was really happy with what God had said. And then he asked me a few questions for me to continuously pray over the mandate that I just received for City of Nations. And it was amazing because he mentioned how that it was important for God to really elaborate what God had committed into our hands at the time. And also I created a WhatsApp group immediately because there were certain people in my life that I knew that these people were going to serve God with the whole of their heart with me. I did not exactly know how God was going to be expressing ministry or how God was going to be expressing service in my life. I just knew that I was devoted at my local church. But I had already formed relationships with people that I knew that these people were going to serve God with me. So these were the few people that I really dropped a message with. And I told them that this is what God is saying at this time. And it was important for us to run this vision together. In as much as I didn't force anybody to join the group at the time, I just had a lead-in, right, that these people were going to be those ones that will stand with me on this journey to building a city of nations, the life of Christ as the standard for greatness. It was amazing for us as City of Nations because it just wasn't about starting what God had actually asked us to start. Because I realized that it's not about starting, it's also understanding what you are about to start. I did not want a situation where we heard a voice from the Lord and then we just set out not understanding how God wanted to work with us. It was amazing that there were some people who were friends, there were some people who were mentors and mentees that I looked up to, and some people who looked up to me. And they began to drop messages, and just to share what they had also received about City of Nations in their own secret place. And it was amazing to see. I remember that I did not really have the boldness to step out until when I reached out to a friend of mine. He's one of the people that is in the admin team for City of Nations, and I told him about it, and he was the one in charge of designs, and he designed the logo for City of Nations, and I just had the motivation to start. I just knew that this was it, right? It was just amazing to see. And these confirmations did not even stop at just one person. It kept on coming as we began to have meetings and meetings over time, and it was just amazing to see what God was doing at City of Nations. I have thought that City of Nations was just a place where God was going to be using his servants to, just teach and equip the body of Christ, because it was a non-interdenominational setting. But beyond that, we had seen signs, wonders, and testimonies that God was enforcing at City of Nations, which I had no idea that God had already had in mind for us. But it was amazing to see at City of Nations.
So what has the journey been like? Man, the journey has really been amazing, really explosive, because I never knew that I could serve in this kind of manner, because I've not always been that kind of person that was always going to serve and all of that. But I never knew that I could do it to this length, and I think it comes with the work, and thank God for the grace for that. And also the experience as City of Nation has been really, really amazing. Like, God has been doing so many awesome things and wondrous things. Sometimes I just look at it and I be like, wow. Especially when we just opened the group chat, when God instructed us to open the group chat, and we just started there, and the numbers skyrocketed, and they were participating, not like they just joined and they left. They were participating. I was like, wow, this is real. So it has been a very amazing experience so far, and we can just see the finger of God everywhere. I feel like that's the way it's supposed to be.
When we got City of Nations, in my head, I felt like City of Nations was going to be a physical expression. I mean, like when you get a mandate from the Almighty, most of the times it's always heading towards, so we're going to start a church, or, we're going to start an expression where people will come and gather. I thought that was how City of Nations was going to start. Until on the 12th of January 2023, I was just lying on my bed. I was watching this, it was a ministration by Reverend Tolu Agbola. He went to preach at Remnant Christian Network. And then he was talking about how that rockets burn their environments before they fly into the sky, which means you literally have to set your environments on fire before God is going to send you globally, right? God has actually said his word that he's going to send us, and we're going to become a City of Nations. But if your village is not feeling the impact of your greatness, he's not going to send you into the nations of the earth. It was amazing for me to understand that. And while I was catching what God was saying, I just heard stats on WhatsApp. I was like, how? I did not want to start on WhatsApp, because I understood how some people will be on WhatsApp in a meeting and then they will just minimize WhatsApp and go to another application and just be having, a field day at another application. And some people will think that, they are active on WhatsApp at the time. I did not want that. I wanted a type of expression where we would literally see ourselves, hug ourselves, teach ourselves the word, and have the power of God impacted on ourselves. And then he said, start on WhatsApp. It didn't make sense. And it was quite a hassle to start, right? And God was very intentional about having us start on WhatsApp, because he said, City of Nations is a seed and you have to sow it. So he said the meaning of sow the seed is start on WhatsApp. I remember I struggled with it until I had one of my friends, Bolu Opaniro, one of the persons that God has actually used, for starting the ministry since we began in January. We've had meetings upon meetings. He was the one that designed the logo. And I saw the logo of City of Nations, and I just knew that God would have us start on WhatsApp. It was quite a hassle.
The thing is, even the journey in terms of how we get to conceptualize things and it follows the right pattern has been something worthwhile for me, because as creatives, it happens in such a way that when you find yourself aligning, you know that you are not just alone. So it's something amazing for me. And when I see the result in terms of how people respond, it is not so popular for an assignment to happen and you see people responding to it. So when you're part of something that you see the results, you see the miracles, signs, testimonies. In fact, when I get testimonies and I'm to design testimonies, and I see the height of things God is doing amongst us, I know that we are going far. And it's not just about City of Nations being a church alone. It also has to do with how big individuals in the City of Nations we will become. So I'm so much expectant. I look forward to what the future holds, and I'm so glad to be part of this move.
So it has been an amazing journey for us as City of Nations. People look at what we're doing, and it's just amazing to see. Sometimes when we share flyers of what we do as City of Nations, like e-flyers and graphics design and all that, many people don't even know that it's a WhatsApp church, because we decided to call it a WhatsApp church. and we have over 900 young people. I think the first few weeks that we started WhatsApp Church, we had over 350 young people in the group, and then the numbers began to increase as we had different meetings, and the power of God was just so evident in our midst. And distance, we found out that distance was not even a barrier to what God was doing with us at City of Nations. It's just so amazing to see what God is doing with us. And God gave us instruction upon instruction, expression upon expression. I remember when God came and said 7:30. It came so strong. Like, that was all I heard. I just heard 7:30. So I began to pray and answer, what do you mean by 7:30? And God said, 7 days, 30 minutes. It's going to be an expression at City of Nations. I said, okay, 7 days, 30 minutes. What does that mean? He says, at the end of every month, the 7 days before a new month, you're going to gather to pray for 30 minutes. I thought we were going to also be praying by 7:30 in the evening, until God said, you're going to be praying every 2 a.m. It did not make sense, because I know young people like myself, waking up to pray by 2 a.m., you must have a level of discipline to be able to afford that. But it was just amazing to see that the first day we had 7:30, a lot of people gathered. We had over 50 young people gathered, and then we prayed. It was just amazing to see. The next day, the third day, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh. And people literally began to ask us to continue 7:30 and not stop, until when God came again and said, so this is how at City of Nations we're going to be crossing into the new month. So 7 days into the new month, we're going to have 7:30, where we wake up by 2 a.m. to pray. It was a discipline on our part. It was a way of God separating us from every other distraction, just to have our attention. And every single 7:30 expression that we've heard since we began in January, God has been proving himself strong. This is just the way to say that City of Nations have just started. There are going to be several expressions that we would find out at City of Nations, because I have come to find out that if God does not send us to go, if God is not giving us an instruction, if God is not sending us to run an expression in a certain type of way, we are not going to step out. One thing that has made City of Nations and brought us to this level, even though we're still young, is that we have been able to obey God's instruction. God knows that each time he sends us to go, we're going to go. And that's how City of Nations has been. And that's been the story of City of Nations since we began in January. Even though we heard the mandate, 8th of November, 2022. We cannot wait to see what God is going to do. I trust that God is going to give us more instructions, more expressions. And this is just the beginning.